On my 22nd birthday, I should have been blowing out candles and arguing about whether lemon tart counts as a cake. Instead, I sat at our dining table in a quiet Maryland suburb, watching my father slide a stack of loan documents across the wood as if they were a place setting. The paper smelled faintly of toner and something metallic. I could hear the refrigerator hum. I could hear my pulse, Reed Dad said. He always preferred imperatives to explanations. The day had started like a celebration. I'd gone downtown to buy 2 suits for my first job at a boutique brand agency in Baltimore. Entry level, yes, but mine. When I came home, the house carried a promise of comfort. Garlic and thyme, a roast warming the air. My mother moved between stove and counter with the efficient ballet she used on holidays. But her eyes kept dropping to her phone. My sister's bedroom door, usually ajar with music leaking out, was closed and quiet. If happiness has a sound, whatever we had that afternoon wasn't it. We ate at 6:30. My mother, Elena, asked if I'd found shoes and I said yes. Black leather sensible, a phrase that tasted like cardboard. My father, Gareth, carved quietly. Across from me, Clara scrolled until Mom said her name twice. We performed small talk the way people perform triage minimally to prevent something worse. The lemon tart never appeared. There was a supermarket chocolate cake with tilting candles, and Clara sang the chorus without meeting my eyes. I made a wish only for the tension to become a thing I could name. After the plates were cleared, Dad said, "Living room," and the air tightened. We filed into the formal room, nobody used except for photographs and bad news. The couch held my parents, the wingback chair took Clara. I ended up on the small love seat, a set piece from old Christmas mornings. We've been thinking about the family. Dad began folding his hands. He liked the word family the way some people like a gavel. Elena twisted her wedding band, a tell I'd known since childhood. Clara stared at a frayed spot in the rug. "What's going on?" I asked. Gareth inhaled like a swimmer starting a race. "There have been some financial adjustments. Clara's in a difficult spot. She needs support." He said support the way contractors say reinforcement. I waited stomach tight, the chocolate sitting heavy. "We sold the Civic," he said. At first, I thought I'd misheard him. I had paid for that car with Saturday shifts at a bookstore and 2 summers scooping ice cream. I'd kept the maintenance records in a neat folder, as if organization could prove ownership. "My car!" My voice landed on the last letter and stayed there. "And we liquidated the remainder of your college fund," he added smoother, now that the first cut had been made. "Your grandfather set it up with me as custodian. Legally, I have authority until you're 25. Elena nodded, relief and apology colliding in one movement. "It's to give Clara a fresh start. She's gotten behind. The calls are daily." Clara's eyes stayed down. "How much?" I asked. 30, Mom said quick, as if speed could dull the blade. 30,000. The number hung in the air like something freshly painted you couldn't touch yet. I thought of the Civic's last oil change, of the little envelope in my desk where I'd kept the final $5,000 of my college fund earmarked for a move-in deposit. I thought of all the ways adults tell you your prudence will be rewarded and what it feels like when it's not. "Did you sell it today?" I asked. "Or was this already done?" Gareth's jaw shifted. "Last week, and the fund the week before." He pushed the folder farther across the coffee table until it nudged my knee. "There's one more thing. Consolidation will bring the payments down. Clara needs a co-signer." I lifted the top page. The form assumed so much: my signature, my future, my willingness to tie myself to a debt that wasn't mine. My name in the blank space looked like a dare. "You want me to co-sign a $30,000 loan," I said evenly, "after you sold my car and emptied my savings." "It protects her credit," Elena said. "She's 19. A mistake at this age can follow you." My laugh surprised even me. Mistake? Clara flinched. For a second, I saw the version of us from years earlier, 2 girls in matching rain boots before rules bifurcated into mine and hers. We used to be an uncomplicated family in a beige house with a swing set and a hydrangea bush that refused to die. Gareth is a structural engineer. Elena teaches 2nd grade and knows the names of every art supply in the world. Photographs line the hallway. Cape May summer's Halloween. Costumes a Christmas where we all wore flannel. The snapshots are honest about their own limits. They record faces, not patterns. Patterns started when Clara turned 15. She borrowed Mom's sedan without permission, misjudged a mailbox, carved a silver wound down the passenger side. She cried, said she was terrified, said she was sorry. My parents wrapped the word sorry in a blanket and called it accountability. Dad spent Saturday buffing the scar from the car, and by dinner we were supposed to be proud of how quickly we had all forgiven. It went like that. Curfews bent, warnings softened into, "She knows." I was the quiet one who made honor roll and wiped counters without being asked. Relatives said Mara is so independent, as if independence were a gift someone had dropped on my porch, not a choice I made each time I understood there would be no net beneath me. When I graduated high school, I took a partial scholarship to a state university, and the small 529 my grandparents started when I was born. I worked in the campus library, avoided debt like it was a hobby, and finished with a major in marketing and a practical GPA. Clara went to a private college for a year and came home with a story about finding her path, which over time turned into a string of retail jobs that never counted. I loved her. Even now, under the weight of the evening that stayed true. But love didn't make the room less quiet, or the paper on my knees less real. "How could you do this without asking me?" I said, still reading the loan's fine print, because facts help when feelings don't. "At least pretend I'm part of the family you keep mentioning." "Because you can handle it," Gareth said. The words were a familiar verdict dressed as praise. "Good grades, job offer, you'll be fine, you always are." He meant it. That was the strangest part, the sincerity. In his world, the most reliable beam should carry the heaviest load. What exactly is the debt? From my asked eyes on Clara for the first time since the living room. 1 year of tuition doesn't make 30. Elena's mouth pulled to one side. There were other obligations. Credit cards, Dad said. A personal loan, some fees. He didn't say eviction. He didn't say anything that might force a conversation about cause and effect. And if I don't sign, I asked. Gareth exhaled through his nose. "You'll need to think about whether living here makes sense. Unity matters. We can't have you undermining this family while we're trying to fix a crisis." I stared at him. Even the lamplight felt like it had receded. "You're saying sign or leave?" "I'm saying support or separation," he replied, choosing a synonym that sounded righteous. Elena reached for my hand and stopped, fingers hovering over the last inch. "We should all calm down." "I am calm," I said, and I was with that particular stillness that exists right after a line is crossed. Clara finally spoke, her voice a small thing in a big room. "Mara, please. I'll pay it back. Every month. I promise." Promises are strange currency in a family like ours. They're always accepted, rarely redeemed. I set the folder back on the table. "You took my car without telling me. You emptied my fund 2 weeks ago and baked a chicken for my birthday like nothing was wrong. Now you want my signature too. You're not asking, you're informing." Gareth stood. "You have until tomorrow evening. To do what I asked, though I already knew. To sign," he said, "or to make other arrangements." The house amplified the silence that followed. Somewhere down the block, a dog barked once and stopped. Elena's ring clicked softly against itself. Clara wiped at her cheek, as if the tear were a smudge she could erase. I thought of the suits upstairs in a garment bag, black and navy, like two versions of a decision. I thought of the Civic possibly already parked in some stranger's driveway, and the envelope in my desk now nothing but paper. I thought about responsibility, and how quickly it turns into a word people use when they mean sacrifice, but only for some. "I heard you." I said standing because the room was too small and my body needed height. "I need air. No one moved to stop me." Gareth nodded like a judge granting a recess. Elena whispered my name and let it fall to the carpet. Clara looked at me like she wanted to say the thing that would change everything and didn't know what it was. In the kitchen, the chocolate cake waited in its clear plastic dome frosting, smudged where a lid had kissed a candle. I pressed my palm to the cool counter and counted backward from 22. In the window's reflection, my face looked older than it had that morning, but maybe that was just the light. Back in the hall, the family portraits watched with fixed smiles as I climbed the stairs. At my bedroom door, I paused, hand on the knob, feeling the thin edge where a house is no longer a home, and a birthday is just a date. Downstairs, the living room murmured voices low, a sentence hitting the table, the soft shuffle of a decision already made. I closed my door carefully. The quiet inside was a relief and a verdict at once. I stood with my hand on the bedroom doorknob until my fingers cooled. The house kept doing what houses do, air through vents, the soft thud of a pipe contracting as it let go of the day, but the sounds came to me as if through a wall of water. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the garment bag hanging from my closet door. 2 new suits, like a pair of decisions I hadn't known I would need so soon. I opened my desk drawer, where I kept the proof of my careful life, a manila folder labeled Civic in block letters. A thinner one, college remainder. A small envelope with a paperclip clipped to nothing in particular. The Civic folder still smelled faintly of rubber and dust. Purchase agreement. Maintenance log with dates I'd written in a neat hand, the way you write your own alibi. The title should have been there tucked behind a photocopy of my driver's license. An absence is heavy when you know exactly what should fill it. I turned the folder upside down to be sure. Only air fell out. The college folder contained bank statements with a balance line I could recite like a song 5,000, and change set aside for deposits and a mattress that didn't have a dent in the middle. 2 weeks ago, the statement said 0, and then an exit. The account number blinked at me as if it wanted to apologize. I logged into my bank. The bar across the top loaded, then settled. The savings account was closed, the checking leaner than I liked. The note on the closed account was a small, tidy sentence about a custodial transfer executed by the authorized adult. I stared until the words unhooked themselves from meaning. The phone on my nightstand buzzed. A birthday text from a college friend scrolled up confetti emojis and too many exclamation points, and then a missed call from a number I didn't save because I knew it by sound, the family phone that had lived on the kitchen wall before it moved into my mother's handbag. I let it go to voicemail. Another buzz. Another. I turned the phone face down and the room darkened by a fraction. A knock soft, then softer, Mara. Clara's voice through the door had the shape of the way she used to ask me to braid her hair when we were both too young to name the things we would come to be responsible for. I swallowed and opened the door. She hovered in the hall like a person not sure how to enter a scene already in progress. Mascara shadowed under her eyes. The sweatshirt she wore belonged to a college she hadn't finished attending. She looked at the floor, then at me. "Can I?" I let her in and closed the door gently behind her. "I know you hate me right now," she said, going straight to the line she'd rehearsed. "I don't," I said, because it was true, in the way a bone-deep truth is true even when everything around it argues otherwise. "But I don't understand what happened." She perched on the desk chair the way you sit when you aren't sure the furniture will hold you. "It wasn't supposed to get this bad." Her voice thinned on the last word. It started with, she stopped and started again. "You remember Derek?" I did. A grin that came on like a light turning up too quickly. Sneakers always knew. Plans told in the plural as if he were 2 people. He said he knew how to flip money. Sneakers electronics. A quick turn. She kept her eyes on her cuticles, picking at skin already raw. I put some on a card, then another. He lost his job. He said it was temporary. I took a small loan to cover a gap, and then a bigger one to cover that. The landlord didn't renew. I thought I could make it up with extra shifts. I didn't. The call started. It was loud. The word loud did too much and not enough. I could see it, the phone vibrating on every surface at once, the increasingly inventive ways you avoid picking it up the way sound makes your body tired. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Not Mom and Dad, me." I was ashamed. She shrugged, then winced at herself. "And because you always seem to have it together and I—" She spread her hands as if to present the scene. "Don't. Together is just a word people use when they weren't there for the mess," I said, then wished I had saved it for a day that wasn't already this one. "How much is it really, Clara?" 30, give or take. She said it fast like a price you hope a seller won't hear. "Give or take what?" She pressed her lips together. "Some fees." "Fees," I said. "And I used Mom's address for a couple of things because I was moving and I didn't want to miss." She saw my face change and stopped. "I shouldn't have done that." "I know. You think Dad knows." She blinked a kind of acknowledgement. "Pieces." I felt the floor tilt a degree, then steady. "I can't sign your loan," I said, and the sentence came out steady enough that I could hear what it felt like to say no to a gravity that had always wanted me to lean forward. "I'm not angry to punish you. I'm not doing this because I don't love you. I'm not going to attach my name to something I didn't build." Her mouth trembled and then stiffened into the version of herself she had practiced every time she got caught. So you're just going to let me drown? No, I said. I'm saying I can throw you a rope that isn't tied to me. Information. A ride somewhere you need to be. Sitting with you while you call and negotiate, but I won't hand you my oxygen mask and go without. I knew you'd say that, she said, and the woundedness in her voice had the old shape of a reprimand. I wish I had said it earlier. I said not to hurt her, but to tell the truth aloud to someone besides myself. She stood, then sat again, then stood. They sold your car, she said, as if I needed the footnote. I told them not to. I did. Dad said it was the only way. He said you'd be fine. He said you're always fine. She pressed her fingers to her eyes and left 2 black commas there. I'm sorry, Mara. I keep meaning to be different than I am. I know, I said. I believe you. We let the sentence sit there and soften. There is a kind of quiet that is useful, and it arrived then as if the room had decided to participate. I have to fix things, she said at last. I don't know how. Start by telling the truth about the number, I said. To them. To anyone you owe. And stop letting other people use your name to make their math work. She nodded, which might have meant she would, or might have meant the nod was the only thing she could do right then. She looked at the closed door, then at me. Are you going to sign? No. She took the no like a small blow. Are you leaving? I didn't answer that because the answer was too close, and saying it would turn it into a siren. She left without slamming the door, which registered as effort. I stood in the place she had stood and breathed until the air felt at least partially mine. The rest of night was work. Not the kind you put on a resume, but the kind that counts anyway. I opened a new bank account online at a credit union I'd meant to switch to for months, the kind of errand you postpone because the old way still works. I moved what I could move. I changed passwords, and then changed the recovery email attached to those passwords, and wrote the new combinations down on a card I would not lose. I scanned my social security card, my birth certificate, my college diploma into a folder in the cloud with a name no one would guess, because guessing isn't the same as knowing. I pulled my largest suitcase from under the bed. Wheels clacked on hardwood. I filled it in a methodical order so I wouldn't have to think too much, and wouldn't think too little. 2 suits, 3 blouses, jeans, a sweater that didn't itch, underwear and socks in a zippered bag, the small clutch of jewelry I actually wore, and not the sentimental pieces I wanted to keep but didn't need. The Civic's spare key went in too, not because it would be useful, but because it still felt like mine. I texted Nia. Are you awake? Emergency, but not medical. Typing dots then. Sort of. What happened? Can I crash a few days? Starting tomorrow, I'll explain in person. Yes. Always yes. Come into Union Station. I can pick you up. Couch is yours. Bless you, I typed and meant it in the secular way. That means you just put a hand under something heavy I was holding alone. I wrote a note to my parents because leaving a sentence is kinder than leaving a vacuum. I did not write a manifesto. I won't sign, I wrote. I'm safe. I need space. I'll be in touch when I can talk without shouting on the inside. I did not say where I was going. I didn't ask them for understanding. I left the note on my pillow because that's where people look when they have already missed what they should have seen. At 3:45 a.m., the house changed temperature the way houses do in the last hour before dawn. I carried the suitcase down the stairs with both hands so the wheels wouldn't mark my leaving. In the kitchen, the cake sat under its plastic dome, as if time didn't apply to frosting. I set my key next to it the way you put an offering beside a shrine when what you're praying for is permission. Outside, the street held its breath. I walked 3 blocks to the bus stop with the suitcase tugging at my shoulder socket, and the air making me aware of every piece of skin not covered. A raccoon paused by a storm drain to watch me pass, and I nodded at it like a neighbor, because we were the only 2 creatures awake on purpose. The first coach to D.C. came at 5:10 headlights, washing the sidewalk in a clean, indifferent white. I boarded, slipped into a seat by the window, and let the bag's handle knock once against the floor to make sure it had remembered gravity. The bus pulled away from the curb, and my town slid into a smaller scale, edges softened by distance. You can see a childhood very clearly. From a moving window, the exit for the library. The turn that always flooded the billboard that insisted you were running out of time to visit a cavern 2 states away. I put my forehead to the glass and let the vibration of the road organize the static in my head. A man in a construction vest slept with his mouth open, and the clean exhaustion of someone who uses his body to make money. A woman in scrubs woke every few minutes to check that she hadn't missed her stop. I watched their faces not to invent lives for them, but to borrow the idea that lives are possible. Union Station wears early light like a well-chosen coat. Nia stood near the taxi stand with a paper cup and a tote bag, and her hair yanked into a bun that announced she had dressed for function. She saw me first and raised the cup like a semaphore. She hugged me the way you hug someone who has asked for help without specifying the terms long enough not theatrical. Coffee, she asked, as if it were a diagnosis. I got sugar just in case. In case of what? In case you want to hold something and this is better than rage. She handed me the cup. It was hot enough to be trustworthy. We loaded my bag into her car, which was clean in the way that means the driver has surrendered to crumbs, but not to chaos. You can sleep, she said, pulling into traffic the way she did everything else with decisive small moves. Or talk. Or listen to a podcast about Victorian bird smuggling. I have one queued up. I told the story in a single loop. Dinner the living room, the folder, the word co-signer said, as if it were a bow. I'd be proud to tie. Saying it made the parts line up differently in my mouth than in my head. Naya did not interrupt with affirmations. She drove. When I finished, she said okay, and the okay contained enough room for me to put something down and leave it there. Her apartment lived in a brick building that had learned to be kind to its tenants. The hallway smelled faintly of laundry and cumin. Her roommate Bree waved from the couch and said I snore, but not on weekdays, which was exactly the introduction I didn't know I wanted. I put my suitcase by the window and texted my boss from my personal email, a neutral message about a family matter, and an ask about starting date flexibility. I sent a second email to HR from the same account, requesting they change the mailing address on file to my work email's P.O. box for the time being. It wasn't elegant, but it protected the part that needed protecting. Then I turned my phone back on for 5 minutes, just long enough to gather the scale of the storm I was choosing not to stand in. 50-something missed calls, 37 voicemails, a stack of texts that began with, "Where are you?" and progressed through the stages of familiar grief. You're breaking your mother's heart. After all we've done, family is everything. I scrolled and did not reply. I typed a single line to my mother. I'm safe, and then shut the phone off again before the next bubble could arrive. By noon, fatigue came on like a tide. Nia put a blanket on the couch without telling me it was there. I lay down meaning to breathe for a minute and woke to the smell of toast and butter and the particular piece of a room that has been cleared for a guest. I ate. I showered using whatever shampoo Nia used, which made my hair smell like a version of her and therefore like safety. I sat at the small table by the window with my notebook and made a list titled Things to Do When I Stand Up. It contained unglamorous verbs: find a short-term sublet in Baltimore, price out used cars, call the credit union about a secured card, check the job start date, gather the rest of my documents from the house when no one is home. Each item made the day more possible. Late afternoon made the room gold. I stepped onto the fire escape and looked at the city going about its business delivery vans, a cyclist with a milk crate attached to the back, a child convinced the stroller was a prison break waiting to happen. The world's indifference was not unkind. It let me have my small plan without offering commentary. Inside, Nia sat cross-legged on the floor and sorted her mail into piles that looked like yes and no and maybe. You can stay as long as you need, she said, not looking up, so I didn't have to look down. I won't be a problem. I said because politeness is a habit I find hard to put down. You're not a problem, she said. You're a person. Night came on evenly. The phone stayed off. The couch learned my shape. In the hour when buildings cool and the air comes through the screens like patience, I let the room hold me. I knew there would be calls to return, and papers to sign, and a version of the conversation with my parents that would leave my mouth dry. I let all of that live outside the apartment for now. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling learn the dark. When the first siren bloomed and faded far away, I counted the seconds until it stopped, and then started again because I needed to believe in repetitions that end. I closed my eyes. The day did what days do. It folded itself and put itself away. Morning arrived as if the apartment had agreed not to wake me too quickly. Nia had left a note taped to a mug, "Heat me, not yourself," and a second note taped to the front door. Take my umbrella if the sky argues. The small, ordinary kindness put air back where the night had knocked it out. I made coffee and opened the notebook from yesterday. The list looked back like a set of switches I could flip one by one. I added 2 more freeze credit, retrieved documents from the house. At the credit union, a woman in a navy sweater with a name tag that said Dora spoke in sentences built to steady a person. We opened a fresh checking account, added 2-factor authentication, and scheduled a small automatic transfer each Friday so the balance would climb even when I forgot to make it climb. Fraud alert, she said, and I nodded. She placed a brochure between us and drew a tidy star beside a phone number. Call the bureaus. 1 call can ping all 3 if you choose the right menu option. She smiled at the part of me that wanted the right menu option to be a moral victory. From a corner table in the branch, using their guest Wi-Fi, because mine felt too new to trust. I put 60 days of alerts on my credit files and set a calendar reminder to renew them. I changed the recovery email on my old accounts and deleted the security questions that expected me to remember a favorite teacher from 2nd grade. Who was your best friend? One asked. The answer used to be a girl who taught me to loop the first letter of my name like ribbon. I typed 3 nonsense words and felt like I had put a lock on a door that had been closing badly for years. Outside, the day had that blunt gray that makes even a bright shirt look like an apology. I was 2 blocks from the apartment when my phone turned on just for the calls I needed to make, rang with a contact I didn't expect, Miss Patel, who had taught down the hall from my mother for 20 years and made a lemon pound cake so faithful it had its own reputation. I'm so sorry to call you, she said in a rush, but I didn't want you to hear it wrong or not at all. Her voice is the sound of bulletin boards and staplers and the way teachers stretch $1 into a bulletin board that looks like care. Your father came to school to find your mother. He's been driving around. He looks tired in a way I don't like. There were men at the house yesterday afternoon asking for Clara. Not police, but not friendly. Your mother said the number is higher than she told you. She said she didn't know the full amount herself. How much higher? I asked. I don't know the exact, she said carefully, but closer to 40 than 30 were the words. A car door slammed somewhere near her. I could hear the echo of it through the phone. Thank you, I said. Please don't worry about me. I'm safe. I know you are, she said. Your mother is not okay. That doesn't mean you have to fix it. She left the sentence standing with me, not leaning on me. If you call, call when you have breath to spare. We said goodbye like people do who have been in the same building for half their lives. Back upstairs, I searched free legal clinic and found one in a church basement where the flyers on the corkboard had learned to hold too many thumbtacks. The intake volunteer took my name and didn't ask for a story. The attorney, a woman with a silver streak at her temple and a pen that clicked once when she needed time to think, listened as I set the facts in order on the table between us. You did the right thing, she said. Separate accounts. Alerts. Don't cosign. She slid a hand out toward me with scripts printed in a font that would photocopy cleanly what to say to a debt collector, how to ask for a validation letter. Why not to talk once you've said it? If your sister used your parents' address for anything predatory, they need counsel that belongs to them, not to her. You can send them resources without making yourself the resource. What about me going back to get documents? I asked. I don't want a scene. Go when no one's home, she said. Bring a witness who is not a witness in the family sense. She underlined a line on a page as if to anchor the rest of her words. And write down what you take. That way even the air between you and them has a record. I left with a manila envelope of photocopies, including a demystifying sheet about bankruptcy that took the drama out of the noun. On the sidewalk, the church bell gave the hour a shape, and then let it go. Nia drove me to the house at 2 the next afternoon, when both my parents would still be at work. We parked 2 streets over. The cake box was visible through the kitchen window, a domestic planet still orbiting a day it no longer belonged to. I let us in with the code because my key was on the counter beside that box, and I was trying to be the kind of person who didn't lie even when she could. We moved like people who have practiced for a fire drill. I took the file box from under my bed, birth certificate, social security card, immunization records, as if a tetanus shot could defend against this, and the framed diploma that still surprised me each time I saw my name spelled right. I wrote, taken by Mara, date, originals on a sheet of paper, and left it inside the drawer where the box had been. I packed the 3 books I always take when the world misbehaves, and 2 photographs, one where I'm 5 sitting on my mother's lap in a sweater with pom-poms, one where I'm 17 at the top of the bleachers laughing with my mouth open because the camera caught me off duty. On the way out, I paused by Clara's door. A strand of tinsel from some party years ago clung to the frame, the way certain decorations refuse the calendar. I didn't go in. The line I had drawn needed to be visible to me most of all. Back at Nia's, I emailed Elena not to open a conversation, but to put something useful in reach. I attached the clinic's resource list, the bankruptcy primer, a directory of credit counselors who weren't running a racket under a nicer name. The subject line read simply, "Information that might help." The body contained 3 sentences: "I'm safe," "I won't co-sign," "If you need legal aid, start here." An auto-reply came back, the kind that institutions configure but families don't. "Your message has been received." It felt like talking into a stairwell and hearing your voice return with someone else's shoes in it. By evening, my boss had written back to say, "If you want to start Monday, we'll make it work," and HR had countered with paperwork that asked me to confirm again that my name was my name. Nia knew someone who knew someone with a furnished room in Baltimore near a bus line and a laundromat that didn't eat quarters. I Venmo'd the deposit and wrote it down on a card I paperclipped to the inside of my wallet like a promise to myself. The next day, we carried my suitcase to the train. Nia hugged me on the platform, then wrestled my ticket out of my hand to check the seat number, because she knows that when I am tired, I can read and not absorb. Baltimore came up fast, the way places do when you don't know yet what they will be to you. The room upstairs from a graduate student's apartment smelled faintly of cumin and old textbooks. The bed was firm. The window looked down on a tattoo parlor whose sign had been designed by someone who liked cursive more than legibility. I bought a weekly transit pass and learned the bus route to the office with my feet because walking maps into your body is better than memorizing them with your eyes. On Sunday night, I hung my 2 suits on the back of the bedroom door and put my shoes beneath them like punctuation. Monday was real badge photo HR's tour of hallways, a chair that adjusted to heights I didn't know chairs could adjust to. My manager, a woman with precise eyebrows and the good sense to leave a silence alone, gave me a small project and the freedom to ask questions. At lunch, I ate a sandwich at my desk and did the kind of math that calms me net pay, after taxes, minus sublet, minus transit, minus the modest groceries I could carry. At 3:20, my phone rang. The contact read home because I had never changed it to parents, as if nomenclature could argue with reality. I stared at the screen until the call slid into a mist. It rang again. I went to a quiet conference room with a window that faced brick and answered before my body could suggest hanging up. Mara Gareth said. His voice was the sound of behind the wheel. "This has gone on long enough." "I'm at work." I said not to stall, but to frame. "Then I'll be quick," he said, and I could hear him focusing on being reasonable. "We made a mistake with the car. Your mother says I should say that. But we have a problem. Your sister, this situation." He stopped as if the noun wouldn't forget his mouth if he spoke it. "We need your help." What kind of help, I asked, because asking for specifics has kept me alive. "Financial advice," he said. "You're good with numbers. And maybe a small loan to manage the immediate pressure. I'll pay you back when we sell a few things." I let the fluorescent light sit on my skin for a count of 5. "I can send you websites," I said. "I can't send you money." "You won't even help your own family," he said, and the hurt in his voice was not his only emotion, but it was the one he presented. "After everything we've done for you. You sold my car and took my savings," I said. "I'm working. I'm paying for a room. I am not a line of credit." A long breath, the kind that clears a windshield. "Your mother is beside herself," he said. "Do you enjoy hurting her?" I recognized the move even while I hated it. "I'm maintaining boundaries," I said. "That's not an attack. It's a shape." "Your sister's drowning," he said. "You're on the shore counting your dollars." "I threw a rope," I said. "You don't like the rope because it's not made of me." He exhaled into the phone, and the sound made a brief cloud against the glass between us. "Come home," he said, and the command wrapped itself in the comfort of habit. "We'll talk. We'll fix it together." "I'm not coming home," I said. It was a sentence with clean edges. "I have sent information that will help you fix what you can fix." "So that's it," he said, and I could hear the verdict forming. "You've changed." "I hope so," I said. The line went quiet enough that I checked my screen to see if the call had ended. It hadn't. He ended it then, without goodbye the way men do when they want the door to make the final sound. I sat in the conference room until the light shifted 1 degree cooler, and then went back to my desk and finished the small project. The work answered to verbs I could complete, draft, revise, send. Before I left, I emailed Elena the same list I had sent before with 3 additional links from the clinic and a line that said simply, "These people won't judge you." Back at the sublet, I washed a plate and set it to dry upright so it wouldn't trap water in its own rim. The graduate student's cat, an indifferent creature named Scholar, brushed my shin in passing and resumed her existential quarrel with a rug fringe. My phone lit, a number I knew. I unlocked it and found a text from Clara. "You were right. I need to change. I'm sorry." I read it twice and then again. The economy of it made it more, not less. I typed and deleted 3 drafts of a reply before letting the phone go dark in my hand. Some sentences need a place to land before you answer them. That night, I fell asleep with the bus timetable open next to the bed like a secular prayer book. The sounds of the block, the clatter of the tattoo parlor's gate, a perfectly tuned motorcycle idling too long. The low elastic song of tires on damp road made themselves into a lullaby without asking my permission. I slept. The room held. In the morning, I would pick up the envelope of photocopies from the clinic and take a different route to the office just to prove to myself that I knew more than one way. I would pack a sandwich. I would put the suit jacket on that made me feel like my bones had agreed on their arrangement. For now, the map of the day folded itself back into the night and stayed where I needed it nearby, but not on top of me. Weeks learned the shape of themselves and kept it. I worked, paid the sublet upstairs from the graduate student with the argumentative cat, learned which bus drivers greeted riders by name and which preferred a nod. On Fridays, I bought a bunch of tulips from the woman who set up a folding table by the laundromat. I kept the clinic's scripts in my bag like spare batteries. The house stopped calling every hour. My mother's emails shifted from paragraphs to single lines. "I got your list. We're looking into this counselor. Please take care of yourself." Assembled like steps on a staircase. My phone stayed on more days than it stayed off. When it rang with numbers I didn't recognize, I let the call die and answered only the ones that started with the area code I missed and the one I was learning. In late summer, Ms. Patel left a voicemail in the cheerful voice she used for substitute plans. "Just so you know, she said things are quieter over there. Your father found a lawyer. The men haven't come back," she added. "Your mother made a lemon pound cake for the first time in a while, as if dessert could be a weather report, which in our town it was." Clara texted twice in a week, a photo of a torn-up debit card, the pieces separated like a diagram, a screenshot of a payment confirmation for an amount that would not impress anyone, but would matter anyway. No commentary. I wrote back, "Saw this," and a minute later, "Proud," because some words have kept too long sour. By September, I had a room of my own. The lease was in my name, and the keys made the right sound when they landed in a small ceramic dish by the door. From the window, I could see the top of a mural someone had painted before my time, a blue hand releasing a string of paper cranes. I bought a second-hand dresser from a couple who were moving to Minneapolis, and a lamp that made evenings feel chosen. I left the suits in their garment bag for 2 days out of habit, then lifted them onto hangers and felt something unclench. The email from my mother came on a Sunday night. No subject line. Could we meet for coffee somewhere between, she wrote. No pressure. It felt like an invitation sent across a river by someone who had finally accepted that shouting did not build bridges. I suggested a place off the interstate, the kind of cafe with reliable scones, and no reason for anyone we knew to be there. She agreed to 2 o'clock. She was waiting when I walked in, both hands around a mug, though it wasn't cold. She stood, then seemed to remember that standing can look like pleading, and sat again. The lines around her mouth had deepened, or maybe I was letting myself see them. She said my name like it was still attached to the child who didn't slam doors. I sat across from her and set my phone face down, and we were quiet until the quiet stopped needing to be named. "You look well," she said. "I am," I said, and let the simplicity stand. We spoke in the past tense first because it was safer. She said we were wrong softly, as if volume could wake a thing she wanted to keep sleeping. Then she found steadier ground. We stopped asking anything of your sister that took longer than a breath, she said. And of you, we kept asking for the parts of you that were easiest to borrow. She didn't cry. She didn't make me say it back to her so she could believe it. She told me the number they had thought was 30 and turned out to be 42, and some sense the way sums are always untidier than a sentence. She and my father had met with a counselor who told them truths as if truth were a chair you sit in, even when it isn't comfortable. They had a plan with dates that could be checked and corrected. Clara was shelving books at the branch library 4 afternoons a week and taking a money management class in a room where the tables wobble. She brings a packed lunch, my mother said, as if that small fact could tip a scale. Maybe it could. I told her I had a lease and a bus pass and 2 plants I hadn't killed yet. I told her I wouldn't co-sign anything now or later, and she said I know without the edge of earlier months. We talked about ordinary things until ordinary felt like a place we could stand without grabbing for a railing. Before we left, she reached into her tote and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "Your grandmother's ring," she said. "It was meant for you at 21. "We didn't." She let the rest fall. I weighed the ring in my palm. It was plain gold, the kind that looks like a circle even when it's not on a finger. I slid it on and it fit. We both pretended not to be startled. She asked if she could hug me. I said yes. In the parking lot, the heat lifted off the asphalt and made small heat mirrors of our ankles. When she drove away, I stood for a minute and watched the taillights become red commas, and then the road took them. 2 weeks later, I went back to the house on a weekday afternoon. I had emailed to say I was coming for a box I'd labeled Kitchen Mara and a sweater I had left behind when summer tricked me into thinking seasons keep promises. No one answered the doorbell. The spare key I didn't have wasn't needed. Elena had left the door unlatched like a sentence left open for a reply. The cake dome was gone. The counter was clean. In the hall, the family photos had been rearranged. The one of me in the sweater with pom-poms had moved up a notch out of the way of elbows. In my old room, the bed was made with a quilt I didn't recognize. The box and the sweater were where the email had said they would be. Beside them sat the Civic's second key on a napkin, the metal bright, the black fob scuffed. On the napkin, my father's handwriting I should have asked. 4 words, no apology syntax. Better. I put the key in my pocket. It didn't fit anything anymore, but some objects don't need to open doors to be the right weight in a palm. I left a note on the dresser, the list of what I'd taken the date my name. On the way out, I stood in the doorway for a breath and looked at the line in the wood floor, where the sunlight always faded the rug, a pale echo that had mapped itself year after year. I touched the door frame with 2 fingers and pulled the door until the latch found itself. Back in Baltimore, I carried the box up 3 flights and set it on the kitchen floor. Inside were 2 mugs, a colander, a corkscrew, a stack of recipes in Elena's tidy hand. One card, a lemon tart I had written off as myth, every time store-bought cake arrived instead, lay on top like an answer to a question I hadn't asked out loud. I baked it on a Saturday with the window open and the radio low. The tart came out imperfect edges too brown, feeling a little shy of set. I ate a slice standing at the counter anyway. It tasted like something attempted and worth attempting again. That evening, Clara texted a photo of a library cart loaded with paperbacks and a pair of shoes I recognized because I had bought them with her last Christmas. Reshelved romance, she wrote. Didn't hate it. Then paid another $40. Then after a gap that felt like a decision being made, I miss you. I sent back the tulips on my table and a picture of the tart with a fork in it. Me too, I wrote. Keep going. We left the thread there for the night, not because there wasn't more, but because enough is a measure you learn. Later, I washed the tart pan and stood it to dry where the light could find it in the morning. I put the Civic key in the small dish by the door beside the apartment keys that did the everyday work. The ring warmed to the temperature of my skin. Through the open window, the city made its uncatalogued music buses groaning downshifts, a laugh thrown too far. Someone arguing amiably with a dog. I turned off the lamp, and the room practiced now at holding it shaped it exactly that. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.